Pokemon Go is no stranger to adding things from the Pokemon anime and movies to itself. We've received things like Squirtle Squad Squirtle, Ash Hat Pikachu's, clone Pokemon, and even Armored Mewtwo. And very soon we're gonna be getting Cowboy Hat Snorlax, which is actually from the anime as Sheriff Snorlax, but since we're not giving it a sheriff's badge and a belt, I'm assuming that's why they're just calling it Cowboy Hat Snorlax. And that got me thinking, what else could we add to Pokemon Go from the anime, the movies, or even possibly other games that would be a fun addition to Pokemon Go? And luckily, after a bit of digging on the internet, I found quite a few things, so let's dive into them. Number one on this list is going to be something not from the anime or movies, but its own game. And unfortunately, I don't believe we're ever going to get it, but it is XD001 or Shadow Lugia. Shadow Lugia was introduced in its own game, Gale of Darkness. It is supposed to be an unpurifiable Shadow Lugia that is the final boss of the game, and it's such a cool design. I mean, come on, take a look at this thing. It would be so cool to have this in Pokemon Go, and also, it would be neat to have a Shadow Pokemon that you couldn't purify unless you had to go through this really complex process, which it would be up to you if you really wanted to do it, because this thing looks really cool, but I just think this thing would be amazing. But since we already have Shadow Lugia and Shadow Apex Lugia, the odds of us getting this are pretty slim, if not impossible to get this. Number two. For number two on this list, it's going to be from the anime, specifically from the Orange Islands episode titled In the Pink. Yeah, that's real. But anyways, the fun thing about this episode is that every single Pokemon on this island was eating a specific berry that would turn them a hot pink color. And there was a lot of Pokemon featured in this episode, including Rhyhorn, Rhydon, Exeggutor, Primeape, Vileplume, Bellsprout, Mankey, Venonat, Caterpie, Weedle, both Nidoran male and female, Paris, Diglett, Pidgey, Nidoking, Dodrio, and Rattata. And also, Ash's Pikachu was eating those berries and its tail was turning a hot pink, so they could add a Pikachu to this as well, with a pink tail that could also possibly have a shiny variant to it. Now, as I mentioned before, this episode aired during the Orange Island series, which means it was mostly just Gen 1 Pokemon with like 1 or 2 Gen 2 Pokemon sprinkled in there. So shiny Pokemon weren't really a thing at this time. We had no idea what a shiny was, so pink Pokemon like this were just a fun gimmick that they threw in. But I feel like this is something that's easily implemented into Pokemon Go. Put it in a Valentine's Day event, where a select handful of Pokemon that they choose, doesn't even have to be the ones from the anime, have a potential of being pink. I think it would be an interesting thing to do, even meta-relevant Pokemon, so there's a chance that we actually might have some useful stuff that you could get possibly as a pink Pokemon. And they don't even have to be that hard to get either. Make it so that they're about a 1 in 25 rate, like Community Day odds. You go out, you hunt a little bit, and you'll probably find a handful of them. I think that would just be a really fun thing to do, and not overly hard either, because it's mostly just a coding thing. A pink Pokemon would just be another costume Pokemon, so it wouldn't be the same code at all, so if any mistakes were to happen, it shouldn't change them back to a normal color or anything like that, hence why our shinies don't do that either. So I think that it would be a fun thing to add, not overly groundbreaking, but I would love it. Number three. For number three on this list, I've got a fun one that's shown up in 2 of the Pokemon movies, and that is Dragonite wearing the messenger bag. Or the purse. That's right, this Dragonite has shown up in 2 of the Pokemon movies, both the first movie and also the remake of the first movie, so clearly they liked it enough. Plus, they actually made a promo card of the Dragonite wearing this bag. Why not put it in Pokemon Go? Put it in raids during another Pokemon First Movie celebration event where we have Armored Mewtwo again and the clone Pokemon. Just have them out there in raids. It's a useful Pokemon. We use it in PvP. We also use it in raids for sure. Like, it's just very useful, and give it the chance to be shiny and people will raid it a lot. I think it's just a cool addition. It's very minor change. I think it'd be great. Number 4. Number 4 on this list comes from the anime, and that is going to be the Mankey and Primeape wearing Ash's hat. This Mankey was introduced in the Indigo League series, and it was in the episode titled Primeape Goes Bananas. And it basically starts off as a Mankey that gets Ash's hat and keeps it away from him, and then eventually evolves into a Primeape, and Ash and the team has to beat it and catch it before it beats them. And I think this would be a pretty easy thing to add to the game. All you have to do is put it in a fighting event and have Mankeys with Ash's hat on and potentially being able to be shiny, and you could evolve it into Primeape, and when you evolve it, maybe give it a special move. They've already done that during a Go Battle Day, so why not give it that special move as the Primeape? Number 5. Number 5 on the list is going to be the Golden Sudowoodo from the episode All That Glitters Is Not Golden. And the premise of that episode was that the trainer that owned the Sudowoodo turned him golden so that he could resist water-type attacks. So I think it would be fun to add into the game because it is a solid gold Sudowoodo and it's supposed to be like a one-of-a-kind thing, so I would want it to be a very difficult Pokemon to get, even harder to get than a shiny, but I think it would be fun to add to like maybe a April Fool's event or something like that, where Sudowoodo spawns a lot. It'd just be cool to have that, and possibly even hatching a Golden Bonsly by chance. I mean, I think that would be pretty fun. Number 6. Number 6 on this list is gonna go to the pink Butterfree. And no, this isn't from the same episode as all those other pink Pokemon. This one specifically was earlier than that, from the Indigo League episode called Bye Bye Butterfree. And not only was it in the episode Bye Bye Butterfree, but it also showed up later on during the movie I Choose You for a brief appearance. This Butterfree is what people thought Shiny Butterfree was gonna look like until we learned otherwise. And I think it would be a cool thing to add to just a bug event or something like that, where this Butterfree has a somewhat decent chance of showing up, or maybe even just as hard as a shiny, but I think that would be a really fun thing to introduce, just for people that love the anime and maybe people that are new to Pokemon Go but watch the anime. This would be a really cool thing to add, and if they really wanted to, you could also add Ash's Butterfree with the scarf, and possibly even giving it a shiny possibility. I think it would be a fun thing to add for a bug event. Plus, it does have a Gigantamax in the future, though I don't know if the Pokemon Company would allow a giant pink Gigantamax Butterfree, but it would be pretty awesome. Now, before we get into the last Pokemon, there are a few honorable mentions that I wanted to bring up. First off being the Clone Starter's first forms. We already have Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise, but there was a small little mini short that had them as their base forms. And it would be interesting to include, but admittedly, if they can't evolve and all the way up, then I don't really see any point to them besides them just being costume Pokemon, so they're cool, but we don't really need those. But then there's also the Snowman Snorlax. I think it's kind of interesting. They're basically just Snorlaxes that adapted to living in the mountains, so they were more of a bright white color. Would be interesting, though I would imagine their typing would have to change, right, to Ice type? Also, another honorable mention that I just now remembered is Venustoise. The combination between Blastoise and Venusaur that showed up in that one episode where Ghastly decided to confuse them together. It would be cool. I highly doubt that will ever make it into the game, but that is something like the OG anime watchers would remember, so I would be down to see it, but we're not going to. And the last honorable mention is going to go to the Meta Groudon that showed up in the Jirachi Wishmaker movie. It was a Groudon that was recreated by a mad scientist so that they could try to control it, and it turned into this horrifying monstrosity, and I have no idea how they would add that to Pokemon Go. It would either have to be a Groudon that couldn't primal later on, or it would have to be something completely different, but it is neat. I do like it. I just don't ever see this coming to any game. Number 7. And our final Pokemon on this list is a Pokemon that I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for, and that is the one and only Crystal Onix, which is a Pokemon that people have wanted to get their hands on for a very long time. Crystal Onix was debuted in the Orange Island series in the episode fittingly titled The Crystal Onix, and people have wanted to get their hands on this thing for literally ever, since it came out. And again, this happened during the Orange Island series, which means shinies were not a thing at that time, and we had no idea what a Steelix was at that time either. This Pokemon was just a rare variant of an Onix. It was supposed to be a one-of-a-kind variant too, and I feel like this would be an easy inclusion into Pokemon Go. Put it in an Adventure Week or another rock event and have Onixes spawning pretty heavily. And the cool thing about Onix currently in Pokemon Go is that it is a perma-boosted shiny, about a 1 in 64 odd rate. Make this the full odds rate. This is supposed to be a very rare Onix. I personally feel like something like that would be really cool. Not only is the shiny available and it's decently common, but also there's just this super hard variant to get. But when you get it, it's gonna be amazing. But I will say that it probably shouldn't be able to evolve. I don't think there would be a Crystal Steelix or anything like that, but that wouldn't be so terrible because Onix does have play in Small Cup, so it's not gonna be completely useless like just some kind of trophy. You could actually possibly use this, so you could flex it in PvP and hopefully get some wins with it too. But with that last Pokemon out of the way, that's everything I have listed. Please let me know in the comments down below if there's anything that I missed that you would like to see as well. And also, don't forget to smash the like button for me, show me some love, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you know when I upload. Links for Patreon and merch are in the description box below. But with that being said, this is the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.